My name is Michelle, I am 26 years old, and all my life, I have felt unwanted and superfluous in my family. In sharp and painful contrast to me, my younger sister Christina, who is 4 years younger, has always been the center of attention and love of our family. Her parents adored and pampered her, supported any of her actions and decisions, regardless of the circumstances. As soon as Christina faced even the most insignificant problem, her parents immediately came to her aid, offering support and ready-made solutions. But my own efforts and achievements were almost always ignored and devalued by everyone around. One day, on a normal day, the parents were preparing for a walk to the nearest park. Mom was fussing, putting various things in a bag, and Dad was frantically looking for car keys. In the midst of all this turmoil, Christina, as usual, was filled with excitement and impatience, hurrying her parents to get ready as soon as possible. Feeling a strong desire to become a part of their plans, I approached my mother and hesitantly said that I wanted to go with them. However, she only glanced at me with a cold glance and replied indifferently, "Michelle, stay at home and do your homework." Her words squeezed my heart like a vice. My father remained silent, without saying a word in my defense, and Christina cheerfully ran out of the house, joyfully shouting, "See you later." I was left alone in an empty living room, sitting on the couch and mindlessly looking out the window. The silence in the house seemed suffocating, broken only by the monotonous ticking of the clock. Parents never pay attention to me, caring only about me doing homework, and I was constantly excluded from family events. As a child, Christina often approached me with sincere enthusiasm and asked if we could play together. If I was doing something, she immediately exclaimed joyfully, "Me too." And it was perfectly natural that she was around all the time. However, as she grew older, she began to realize that her parents treat her in a special way. They showered her with love and praise even for the most insignificant achievements, while they remained indifferent to me, and showed no interest in my successes or feelings. Over time, this difference in attitude became obvious to Christina herself, and she had a sense of superiority over me. Her once sincere behavior was gradually replaced by condescension. She became dismissive of our conversations and mocked my failures. At the same time, in front of her parents, she continued to portray an ideal obedient daughter. Her attitude towards me became colder and colder, and I felt more and more like a stranger in my own family. After graduation, I got a job as a waitress at a local restaurant. At first I was scared, but gradually I got into a rhythm and even began to enjoy working. However, my family did not consider this work unworthy, disrespectful. My mother often released dismissive comments, humiliating my profession, asking, "This is the only job you can do." She rarely showed interest in the stories I told about my work. Similarly, Christina only formally expressed support, saying, "Being a waitress is a respected profession." But there was not a drop of sincere interest or warmth in her words. At family gatherings, I often felt invisible, as my parents and Christina seemed to simply not notice my presence. This recurring feeling of pain hurt me deeply. But despite everything, I continued to crave their recognition and love. When I was 20 years old, I met Arthur through a mutual friend. At first I thought he was shy and serious, but as the dialogue, I was attracted by his true kindness and empathy. We quickly became close, and after several meetings, our friendship developed into a romantic relationship. Spending time with Arthur became a real joy for me, and soon we decided to move in together. My life began to revolve around our common moments. Every day became special thanks to his presence. He was for me not only a source of comfort and support at home, but also a real companion in our joint adventures. Having started this new stage with Arthur, I became more and more distant from my parents and Christina. Immersed in work and life with him, I began to communicate with my family much less often. The time spent with Arthur was a salvation for me from old traumas and emotional neglect that I experienced as a child. One day, after a long absence, I decided to go to a family meeting. This made me complicated feelings that I had suppressed over the years. I had light conversations with relatives I hadn't seen for a long time, but I quickly noticed that my parents and Christina were still treating me as if I wasn't there. Suddenly, Christina announced loudly to everyone, "I'm getting married." This news took me by surprise, as I found out about it at the same time with all my relatives. Neither Christina nor my parents told me anything in advance. This news caused me mixed emotions, and in the way it was presented, I felt a clear chill. Unable to find words, I just silently accepted the situation, while all conversations instantly switched only to Christina's wedding. My presence became even more inconspicuous. I was overcome by a feeling of unspeakable loneliness and sadness, which only intensified with each passing moment. Despite the smile, which I tried to keep for the sake of decency, I felt like a complete stranger among my own. When the preparations for the wedding began in full force, I felt even more excluded. Since I have long moved out from my parents, I was not devoted to details of preparation. Wanting to take part in some way, I wrote a message to Christina. "If you need any help, just tell me." But in response, I received only a short and indifferent, "It's all right." Her indifference only increased my sense of uselessness and further alienated me from my family. A few days later, I unexpectedly received a call from Christina. "Michelle, can I ask you about the wedding dress?" I was surprised, but wanting to help at least in this, I was looking forward to her explanations. However, her next words left me speechless. "But you're not invited to the ceremony." The realization that I wasn't even invited to my sister's wedding hurt me. In desperation, I asked, "Why?" I couldn't understand why I was expelled. Christina paused, then took a deep breath and answered, "Just because I don't want my future husband Wesley and his parents found out you were working as a waitress." As soon as these words left her lips, I felt a sharp pain shoot through me, as if someone had torn my heart apart. I was excluded from her wedding for such a trivial reason. My voice trembled with a mixture of pain and disbelief, but Christina said with icy indifference, "Everything is as it is. If you really cared about my happiness, you would understand, wouldn't you?" I stood stunned. It was obvious that Christina didn't even realize how much her words hurt me. She didn't understand the deep pain she was causing me, and she didn't even seem to be trying to think about it. Have you ever thought about my feelings? Maybe at least think a little about me. Christina raised her voice, and I was taken aback for a moment, involuntarily swallowing my next words. I suddenly realized how much her status was important to her. Much more than me. "Okay," she said dismissively, "I'll send you the details about the dress by mail." After these words, she just hung up. An oppressive feeling immediately seized me, my chest was squeezed, a hurricane of emotions raged inside. An interweaving of anger and bitterness. I never imagined that refusing an invitation to my sister's wedding could hurt me so deeply. I decided to pull myself together and talk about it with my parents. When I called them, my father just laughed and said, "Yes, it's probably just a joke." And the mother snorted in disbelief. Christina would never say anything like that. Those words almost broke me. They didn't believe a word I said. This conversation only confirmed how alien I had become to my own family, and a wave of disappointment swept over me. Unable to bear their cold relationship, I returned home, where Arthur was sitting on the couch. He immediately realized that something was wrong, and quietly asked, "What happened?" I didn't pull a fake smile, and honestly told him everything. About the wedding, about the conversation with my parents, and about the feeling of loneliness that I have experienced for so many years. When I finished, tears threatened to spill. Arthur listened to me in silence, then took a deep breath, and suddenly said, "Actually, there is something I have to tell you." I looked at him in surprise, and he continued, "I secretly work as an organizer of Christina's wedding." I froze, shocked, confused, not knowing what to say. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I barely managed to say. Arthur winced slightly, as if he was uncomfortable. "I knew that you were estranged from your parents and Christina, and I decided to keep silent. Because I understood how much it would hurt you." His words caused me mixed feelings. On the one hand, I appreciated that he cared about my emotions, but on the other, I wanted him to tell me sooner. "But Christina asked you about the dress, right?" Arthur sat down next to me and gently put his arm around my shoulders. "Yes. And I think that the very fact that she turned to you means that in some sense she still counts on you." His words made me think. Maybe she'll change her mind and invite you to the wedding. After all, if she really didn't love you, she wouldn't have asked for help with the dress, right? Arthur smiled at me, and it made me feel a little warmer inside. But I was still doubtful. I wasn't sure if Christina would really invite me to the wedding. Arthur stayed by my side, supporting me while I tried to sort out my feelings. Meanwhile, I continued to work on Christina's wedding dress, despite all the emotions that overwhelmed me. Every time I thought about Joe about the wedding, I was overwhelmed by a feeling of deep resentment. But I kept focusing on making the dress perfect. It was the only thing I could do for her. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I had a tiny hope that maybe at the last moment, Christina would decide to invite me after all. I carefully followed all of Christina's detailed instructions, paying attention to every detail of the fabric and design, so that the dress turned out to be flawless. However, the invitation to the wedding, and not to drink on me, did not follow. It was the day of the rehearsal dinner. The hall was beautifully decorated, relatives and friends gathered in a festive atmosphere. During this event, Christina, Wesley's fiancée, clearly noticed my absence. We had known each other since college, not particularly close, but maintained a good relationship. Perhaps that's why he noticed that I wasn't there. During a break at dinner, he approached Christina Exibus. "You asked, hey, why didn't Michelle come? She's part of the family too, right?" Christina hesitated for a moment, and then, smiling tightly, replied, "Well, she seems to be busy at work. I think this is not a cause for concern." Wesley frowned, his face clouded with mild bewilderment. "But isn't it strange that your sister doesn't participate at all?" These words clearly took Christina by surprise. She thought for a while, and then said, "Maybe. But you're definitely going to be at the wedding, right? Let's just enjoy this dinner." Wesley, though he remained a little puzzled, decided to accept her words and not insist further. After dinner, an unexpected event was waiting for me. A call from Christina. As soon as I picked up the phone, her angry voice cut into my ears. "Why you?" Did Wesley complain? I was taken aback. "What are you even talking about?" I was genuinely confused and didn't understand where her hostility came from. "Michelle, you're the one who told Wesley to ask me to invite you to the wedding, right?" Her voice sounded sharp and accusing, as if I had betrayed her. "No, I didn't tell him anything." "Don't lie to me." "Then why did he suddenly ask about it?" "You influenced him on purpose to get yourself an invitation." Her harsh words hurt me, leaving a heavy residue. "Christina, I really didn't say anything." My voice trembled. It was difficult for me to defend myself from her unfounded accusations. "Stop meddling in my wedding. It's none of your business." With that, she hung up. A few hours later, the phone rang again. The seeds of the parents were displayed on the screen. I picked up the phone and immediately heard my mother's cold, disappointed voice. "Michelle, what do you think? Why are you interfering with your sister's wedding? What goal are you pursuing?" Her accusations stunned me. "I didn't ask for anything," Wesley just asked, tried to explain to her. But then my father intervened in the conversation. His voice sounded harsh and judgmental. "Do you have any idea what kind of problems you've created for Christina?" At that moment, rage mixed with resentment boiled up in me. I was accused of something I didn't do without even trying to understand me. I felt like everything inside was boiling with injustice. "I have nothing more to say." "No one believes me anyway," I said, ending the conversation. Feeling completely powerless and empty, I ended the call. Tears welled up in my eyes. I was literally crushed by the cruel words of my family. I was gripped by a deep sense of frustration, but I wasn't going to leave everything as it was. Mixed emotions, anger and determination, made me pick up the phone and dial Arthur's number. "Arthur, please cancel the rental of Christina's wedding dress." There was a short pause on the line while Arthur took in my words, but soon he answered with understanding. "I understand how you feel. I will support your decision." Later, Arthur told me that Christina was in despair and could not understand what was happening. On the wedding day, the dresses never arrived at the place as planned. It was said that the wedding guests were animatedly discussing this unexpected problem. As a result, a similar ceremony never took place. After that, unable to contain her anger and disappointment, Christina attacked Arthur. Why did this happen? You were the wedding planner. You ruined the most important day of my life. After all this turmoil, Christina went on a honeymoon with Wesley. However, unexpectedly, right during their honeymoon, Wesley called me. There was confusion and concern in his voice. "Michelle, I need to ask you something," he continued, his voice full of doubt. "I tried to talk to Christina about why you weren't at the wedding, but she evades the answer in every possible way." Feeling his tension, I carefully chose my words. "All because Christina was afraid that you and your parents would find out that I work as a waitress. She was probably worried about how you would react to this." After a short silence, Wesley said in shock, "I can't believe that Christina really thinks that." As he realized the truth, his voice became calmer but more determined. During their honeymoon, he made a final and unexpected decision to file for divorce. When Christina returned from a trip, she went to her parents' house and was surprised to find a sign for sale right in the yard. In a panic, she immediately dialed my number. "What's going on? Why is the house for sale?" I calmly replied, taking a short pause. "My parents asked me to keep the house for you, but since you got married, I decided that you no longer needed it and put it up for sale." There was silence on the other end of the line, and then Christina confessed, in a voice trembling with emotion. "Actually, I'm getting a divorce." I froze, confused from surprise. "Divorce? But you just got back from your honeymoon." Immediately, Wesley's call came back to mind. "It's your fault," Christina shouted. Her words pierced me like a knife. I couldn't say anything, too stunned by her accusation. "Wesley found out that I didn't invite you to the wedding because I didn't want him to know you were a waitress. You must have told him everything." Christina was seething with rage, her anger was directed only at me. I stood in a daze, shaken by the situation. "It's all because of you." I took a deep breath, and, with difficulty restraining the tremor in my voice, replied, "Christina, I didn't mean to hurt you. But when Wesley asked, I couldn't lie to him. I never imagined that he would decide to divorce you." But Christina immediately interrupted me, shouting, "Don't make excuses. You have to take responsibility for this." The conversation ended abruptly. She just hung up. A few days later, the seeds of my parents were again highlighted on the screen of my phone. I sighed loudly, preparing for another unpleasant conversation. As soon as I answered, my mother's cold, disappointed voice rang out on the phone. "What happened to Christina is really terrible," her mother said in disappointment. "You set it up by telling Wesley, didn't you? What a disgusting sister you are." Her father immediately supported her. "You always do that. You never think about family. What did you want to achieve by hurting Christina?" These words made my insides boil. I answered sharply, "You never believe me anyway. You're acting like it's all my fault. But in fact, you don't understand anything at all." There was a short pause on the phone, then the mother sighed heavily. "You have no empathy for your family at all." I couldn't hold back a bitter, cold laugh. "Do I have no empathy? Do you mean to say that you have shown it to me at least once?" There was silence on the other end of the line. I continued in a flat, icy voice, "We're not even family. I don't care about Christina anymore." With that, I hung up the phone, finally deciding not to have anything to do with her anymore. But Christina didn't stop. She started publicly accusing me on the internet, posting daily that her divorce was entirely my fault. She directly blamed me for the collapse of her marriage. Over time, her publications became even angrier. She began to attack not only me, but also our parents, friends, and acquaintances. One day, right at work, Christina burst into the store where I was working. Noticing me, she immediately raised her voice, shocking those around her. "You ruined my life," shouting loudly. She quickly headed towards me, attracting the attention of all visitors. My colleagues froze in shock, watching what was happening. Ignoring the startled looks, Christina furiously pointed her finger at me and screamed, "You're the one who ruined my marriage by telling Wesley." Her voice echoed through the store, causing customers to look around anxiously. I tried to stay calm and calm her outburst of rage. "Christina, please stop." But she wasn't going to stop. She continued to yell, not caring at all about how awkward others were becoming. Her behavior completely got out of control, and I had to call security to calm down the situation. Another time, she burst right into my house, pushed me aside, and started smashing things. I quickly grabbed the phone and started filming her aggressive behavior. But her pursuit did not stop. She filled up my mailbox with threats, and a terrible inscription "traitor" began to appear on the door of my house. The worst sister. Every morning I was greeted by hateful words written in black paint. The contents of her letters were getting scarier. "You took everything from me. I will never forgive you." At first I tried to ignore her antics, but soon the neighbors began to worry. "Have you seen this woman making a scene outside your house? Are you all right?" The situation began to put a lot of pressure on my mental state. I never thought that Christina's obsessive malice would go so far. When I reached the limit, I talked to Arthur and decided to sue her. We turned to a lawyer and officially filed a lawsuit to put an end to her harassment. Her behavior was recognized as aggressive harassment and harassment. The evidence I collected was irrefutable. I had enough materials to prove her constant attacks and threats. A few months later, the court issued a verdict. Christina received a suspended sentence for 1 year with mandatory psychological counseling. In addition, a restraining order was issued prohibiting her from approaching me, providing me with legal protection from further harassment. This verdict has brought me great relief, finally bringing a little peace back into my life. However, Christina did not stop there. She filed a civil lawsuit against me, demanding compensation for the damage allegedly caused by me. I consulted with my lawyer again and decided to propose a settlement of the dispute in order to avoid a protracted trial. In the end, after persuading her parents, Christina reluctantly agreed to the settlement. They convinced her, saying that it makes no sense to inflate the conflict further. It's better to just back off. But even after that, she remained dissatisfied, muttering with obvious resentment, "It's all her fault." After the settlement, being under legal protection, I gradually began to return to normal life. When I became anxious, Arthur was always there to support me and calm me down. Although the scars from the past may never go away, thanks to Arthur, I no longer lived in fear and could enjoy a quiet life. We moved to another city, finally severing ties with my family and the past, starting everything from scratch. Every morning, we sat together, sipping coffee and discussing plans for the day. These simple moments have become the greatest source of happiness for me. "Now let's move forward together," said Arthur, gently squeezing my hand. The warmth of his touch penetrated to the very heart, softening the remnants of the former pain. Even if the shadows of the past still cast a faint trace, but now I was not alone. Arthur was next to me, and it gave me the courage to step into a new future. I took a deep breath and confidently looked ahead, ready to meet everything that awaited us ahead.